After building Howl's Moving Castle, one of the questions I'm asked the most is if I'm going to make the next versions of the castle. There's the flying version from the end of the movie, but I also really like the stanky walking two-legged version that just keeps on trucking, so let's do that one. Dan offers some great advice on how to repurpose the last model for building it. But you can also build it from scratch, starting with a pair of chopsticks from your kitchen drawer, where you specifically hoard takeout utensils. We'll also need a few dozen coffee stirring sticks as well. Like the last build, I'm distressing stirring sticks until they look like good prank sticks for giving people tongue splinters. Don't do that. I assembled the deck on the sticky side of some masking tape, then made the edges perfectly uneven. Chopsticks aren't just the ideal grasping tool for crafting. They also make pretty decent scale lumber. The wood is soft enough to scratch in some exaggerated wood grain. Then I'm laying down a line of glue to secure these beams to the deck. I'm planning on mounting the two legs from the center, so I'm bulking out the middle beam with more chunks of chopsticks, then adding a couple of beads for hip sockets. Here's a zip tie. Shh, listen for where it lands. Echolocation is key for finding craft projectiles. There's another detail needed for the hip sockets. Now tell me those aren't exactly horseshoes. I bought a bulk pack of these horseshoe charms a while back, and now I'm cursed to use up the rest of them in every project or I'll be haunted by this little guy. Now time for a delicious honey graham cracker. The worthless crafting tip of the day is you might have marginally more fun crafting when you use just the clipped out food graphics from scrap food packaging. I'm super gluing these pieces of paperboard to make all of the metal plating that holds the beams to the wood deck on the underside. Now release the rainstorm of rhinestones. Micro dabs of super glue, then tiny rhinestones as rivets. Ah, nuts, if only I had a special tray designed for holding and orienting rhinestones and not just a disposable plastic plate.
Previously on Stutson Studio.
I don't know what this is, do you? Please let me know if you do. Ironic that I destroyed something that could have been a useful tool. It happens sometimes. On the underside is the castle's last remaining gear doing the hard work of pumping those legs. Using a safety pin, I removed the safety part, then glued on a gear charm from a steampunk snack pack. I'm gluing the gear in place, so no spinning allowed here, then capping off the other side with a piece of a plastic tube, and then a couple metal bead caps to cap off the ends. I'm using fire to slightly soften this plastic lollipop stick so I can release some carbon monoxide and form the tube into some sort of exhaust pipe that hangs off the underside of the deck. Alright, deck done. To make the legs, I'm using a couple safety pins as armature wires. I used 2 pairs of pliers for this because despite their name, stretching and bending these wires by hand felt a little dangerous and occasionally pointy. Then these bones are covered in a leg exoskeleton, which is composed of beads, more lollipop tube, and these metal cone beads, which I acquired specifically to make these legs. The end of each leg also features feet, which I'm making from these clock hands that came in a bag of miscellaneous gear charms. I'm using a dab of CA glue, then with a droplet of CA glue accelerator, it locks the clock hands together into a full foot. Alright, this is looking pretty good, which is pretty bad. I want it to look pretty bad because bad is good. The castle just crumbled apart, so it needs more wood debris to achieve a less manufactured, messy look. The placement of each wood crumb is movie accurate because I'm a maniac, but it still looks off, so I'm roughing it up a bit more to add a little more wear and tear. Oh, what a mess I've made. But the good news is I like mess because this bounty of sawdust will be used later. A friend recently gave me this filter top cover, which will make a great base for mounting this leggy platform. But it needs something to mimic the rocky, mountainous details from the film. Bark? Oh, that's a great idea, Heen. Time for a scavenging excursion at the beach. Tree bark makes excellent scale rocks, cliffs, and sediment layers. After making some choice selections from this wood buffet, I boiled it for cleanliness, strained out the tree broth, then baked it low and slow to dry it out.
Bon appetit.
Glue hates smooth plastic, so I gave it a good sanding, then slashed it up a bit. This gives it some tooth for the glue to grip onto. But the real fun part is finding the perfect bark arrangement. It's like a secret puzzle that you get to invent. I first saw this technique of using bark as rocks from Scratch Bashing. Go check out his various wood bashing and junk bashing videos for a balanced diet of scratch building. Once you've found the perfect pieces destined to fit together, flip it over to find your reward, a glob of molten hot glue ready for a support block of foam to hold up this wooden clamshell on its base. As much as this looks like one solid piece, there's still a lot of gaps that need filling. I watered down some spackle to make some seam cream to fill in all of the hot glued edges. While the goop is still moist, we can sprinkle on extra bark pieces and other rock flock, but this layer of cream is making me crave more cream. From this sour cream container, I'm sprinkling on some pebbles and dirt to add some ground cover and fill in any last areas of exposed wet goop. Then I'm spraying down the whole mound in an even wetter goop of watered down white PVA glue to seal in all of the rocks and bark into one waterproof lump. Lump! Here's what it looks like after priming, but first it's time to paint Howl's walking platform. The first step is to weather seal this deck in Mod Podge and black paint. And then good news, we're using wood hues, starting with an overbrushing of dark brown, and then an ever so lighter overbrushing with something like a terracotta or a chestnut. Then finishing it off with a khaki dry brush to kiss the edges with a highlight. For the metal sections, I'm keeping it simple with your everyday basic silver dry brushing, partially because these details are hardly seen on the underside, but also I lack a creative vision for making it interesting. I lightly grazed everything in silver, making sure to retain some of the black primer for a tarnished look. We can't forget the legs, which also get a silver dry brushing. They're not much to show off now.
But you know what is much to show off?
This drawing of Howl's moving toaster from Kai, the son of one of my supporters on Patreon, complete with a rivet count of 122. In fact, here's a lovely compilation of Ghibli-related art created by many of the folks supporting me on Patreon. Thank you all for your support in helping me make these videos. Since this video is a bit shorter than the last time, and somewhat of a part 2 to the last video, I'm saving all of the new patron shoutouts and my mediocre sing-song rap abilities for the next video. I know in the past I teased that Howl's Moving Castle would be my final entry into the Ghibli series, but the lie detector test determined that to be a lie, so keep on the lookout for more Ghibli-related crafts in the future. I have a few ideas bumbling around in my brain, but what other Ghibli crafts would you be interested in seeing? Let me know in the comments. But no one is allowed to suggest I make the flying version of the castle, otherwise I will be obligated to take the one I already made last time and launch it with a trebuchet. Thank you for sending in your lovely Ghibli art, everyone. Now back to my lumpy Ghibli art. Wow, impressed? The next step for this pile of bark I'm calling a base is painting, using a wash method I've seen on both Scratch Bashing and Luke's Geek Gaming Scenics. Starting with a base of white, I'm doing several passes of different colored washes. These are made with 50% acrylic paint and 50% water, like from the toilet. The first pass is to make about a third of it look like scrambled eggs with a yellow wash, then make the next third a little spicy with a reddish brown wash. Then we're going to blend it all together with an extremely wet brown and black wash. First up, scrambled eggs and chocolate milk. First we cover the whole thing in a generous coating of brown wash to tie it all together. Then throw it in the trash because it's been bad. Bad boy, take this coating of watered down PVA glue. Then the black wash, which always looks a bit darker when it's first applied, so do not fear the wet look. Wait for it to dry and you'll see the magic happen. After a couple passes, followed by an off-white dry brush to bring back some of the edge highlights with a cheap makeup brush. It's looking pretty gray and rocky, but still with some slight color variation showing through. Next, this gray rocky needs some green flocky. Speaking of Rocky, here's a very sweaty looking Rocky Balboa sculpture I saw in Philadelphia one time. While I love adding flock, I didn't want to entirely hide the rock, so I kept the greenery to just the crevices or areas where I thought moisture might accumulate in nature. It helps to try to think of yourself like a thirsty lichen when mossing cliffsides. Grow where you think you'd get the deepest drink of water. To seal all this fragile flock in, I misted these sierras with an isopropyl alcohol spritzer, then followed it up with a white PVA glue chaser cut with water. After painting the edges with a flat black, it was time to finish up Howl's walking wood floor. This is going to be kind of tricky to glue it into an action pose without having to wait for the glue to dry. Okay, here's the plan. We're going to add a drop of super glue, then a drop of CA Glue Accelerator, then there's no time to screw around because we have to set up the pose within 2.5 seconds before the glue has time to fully cure. Nice, it worked, and I definitely didn't rip the legs off and try that shot multiple times. Let's add a little more glue and accelerator into each acetabulum just for good measure. I destroyed more safety pins to give the castle pointy feet to stab into the bark, and now it stands on its own. One of the movie details I wanted to incorporate into the base was the trail of destruction as the castle hobbles along. Here's the leftover wood clippings from earlier. Sorry, no tutorial on how to make them. I stained them with a few drops of burnt umber ink. Then I grabbed a handful of plastic junk from the last episode and made this metal shrapnel to join the debris trail. Now please enjoy this montage of gluing trash onto the ground. Alright, that's the last of the junk debris trail. Now let's make it a little dirtier with an oil wash. Be careful with mineral spirits. Mineral spirits are actual poison, so I wear a mask and do this near a window, which I keep open by the way. Everything gets a bath of burnt umber to tie it all together for an even coat of brown grime, but before it dries I make sure to dab off the extra where it's pooling together with a paper towel. I didn't limit this dirty wash to the metal sections though, I also dabbed it sparingly on some of the wood boards to add some variation. This is looking okay, but it's really just a deck. It's lacking character, so let's make one. How about someone cute? Ah, perfection. And there's our very recognizable turnip head. If you've seen my Kiki's Delivery Service video, then you know exactly what disaster is coming up, and I'm sorry.
This is terrible.
Turnip head needs a turnip head, not this human thing, so get this out of here, but don't throw it away. You never know when you'll need a loose skull. Turnip head is also ragged from the knees down, so let's release that torso. And this arm pose is completely wrong. I reoriented the arms with a metal wire, then produced this second mystery arm off camera, and the T-pose is complete. Continuing with the safety pin theme, I gave him a sturdy metal neck and then made his head from a bead. For Turnip Head's top hat, I hole punched the brim from a sheet of scrap plastic, then slipped it over the metal rod piercing his skull. For the main barrel of the hat, I used the inner peg from a Gundam leg from my bits box. But you're not a scarecrow unless you're skewered on a stick, so let's use a pin vise to drill out some of that crotch chaff so we can impale him on a toothpick. The general shape is there, but now for some detailing, like the open lid for this can of beans, and then some ragged clothing. Using a tissue and dipping it into some watered down glue, I draped it around his waist to make his coattails, gave him a tiny paper bow tie, then added some more ragged tissue paper as the fabric for his torn pants. I stabbed a safety pin into a toothpick and clipped off 99% of each to be left with Turnip Head's tiny pipe. After priming, I'd say he's looking pretty good, though he looks a little lonely without the rest of the family.
Well, in for a penny, in for a pound.
How about Farmer Leonard here?
Oh, my back.
He can play the unconscious Howl. I covered up those overalls with a tissue paper tunic, then gave him a beautiful head of hair using green stuff epoxy. He's far from perfect, but Howl is overly focused on his looks anyway, so we'll stop there. Using another waving person, I severed and glued them into a kneeling position as the base structure for a kneeling Sophie. I gave her some hair that looks far from Starlight, then some spaghetti octopus tubes that I attempted to sculpt into hands holding Calcifer and Howl's heart. After a tissue paper dress, Sophie's done, but can you guess who this lump is?
Oh.
Yeah, you got it! In addition to this clay mistake, I gave tiny Luke Skywalker a bow tie and called him Markle, and this chunk of green stuff is Heen. After priming, this messy family looks slightly more forgivable. Let's fly through the painting though, because this section of the video would make a pretty poor excuse for a tutorial on how to paint minis. I am again using a painting technique called passing the across the room test, the goal being for them to look passable from 15 feet away. The quick steps being base coating, applying some washes and flesh shades, then dry brushing to save any highlight details that were lost to my smothering base coats. And the family is all done, but one of them still has no face. It's Turnip Head. I'm using a Gundam marker to draw his deceivingly simple dot eyes and toothy grin.
Love me.
And that's it. Stay tuned for the beauty shots as well as the answers to a few common questions on the last video. Howl and Sophie's lumpy family may not be perfect, but who needs perfect? Oh yeah, and if you didn't already, please watch this video from across the room and don't lean in just to look for flaws.
Seems everyone in this family's got problems.
And now for some quick Q&A about the Howl's Moving Castle video from last month. How long did it take to build the castle? About 300 to 400 hours spread out over 61 days. How long did it take to edit the video? 15 days. How long did it take to make the Patreon shoutout song at the end? Probably about a day. I write and record it in chunks, so I start to run out of rhymes near the end. How much does the castle weigh? 4.2 pounds on my food scale. I should have used more die-cast metal to make it a collector's edition. How many Gundams gave up their life for the build? 4, rest in peace. How much? It's not for sale, but feel free to leave your valuation for a trash sculpture in the comments. Thanks for watching, everyone. Tune in next time for something entirely unrelated to Studio Ghibli, as well as a Patreon shoutout song for all of the new patrons that have joined recently. See you next time.